Hey, it's Coach 2K with Coach2K.com, and in this video we're going to continue our series on preparing our C2K Pacers Summer League squad to start playing the EuroLeague teams. If you caught my last video, then you know we're going to use the same roster that the real-life Pacers are going to use down in Orlando, and that's the Summer League that they're going to participate in. But here in freestyle practice mode, I've got a roster of guys that I really don't know a whole lot about. I'm kind of familiar with Solomon Hill, but the rest of these guys, are guys that I've never ever used. So when you're starting with a team, you want to kind of take a look at their numbers here and see what they can do. I always start working on offensive skills first, and so I'm mainly concerned with their overalls and then also their shooting ratings. And then I really believe the game is, while you can certainly play good defense in it, your defense is a lot better if they have to play against 5 guys every time down, and one of the ways you can make sure that happens is by being very effective on offense. So I start studying the game based on offensive skills, and so here I'll look and see, like for example, Joseph Young is one of my best 3-point shooters, so he's one of the guys that I'd want to focus on getting him there. Basically in freestyle practice mode, the other thing you're going to want to do as far as the gameplay settings, is to make them. I always put on a Hall of Fame sim. Even if you play on like Pro or Superstar or All-Star, I'd always recommend that you practice on Hall of Fame sim, just because it's harder than what you'd have in the actual game if you do play on a lower level. And then I play with the feedback off, but that's not important if you want to leave that on. So anyway, that means that I'm ready to get into freestyle practice mode. This is a really nice mode. Basically, there's 3 skills that with each of these players on the roster I'm going to start working on, and those are the shooting skills. Primarily what you want to do is see where people's releases are, so you can get a good idea and get comfortable shooting with them and gain confidence in their abilities to make shots. So I do use user timing, because every player is different. I think it adds a little bit more realism to it. Next thing you're going to work on are ISO motion skills. Now, I wouldn't necessarily use those with Solomon Hill. I would probably take a guy like, let's say, Joseph Young and bring him in. And so, in addition to working on his shooting, I'm going to work on his ball handling skills. So, what you do, if you're not sure what types of options are available to you in these categories, here's the shots you can choose. And so, with each player, you want to kind of get proficient in doing what they can do well. There's the ISO motion skills, and so I would spend time kind of working on each of these moves whenever you go into freestyle practice mode. And then also here's your post shots. So really there's 3 types of categories of players. You got your players like Joseph Young, who's going to play probably handling the ball a little bit more. And he's going to shoot, so you're going to want to work with his ISO motion skills and his shooting. Solomon Hill, he's going to basically be a spot up shooter. He's not going to spend a lot of time juking his guy because he doesn't have those kind of skills. Then you're going to have bigs like Miles Turner, and so obviously you wouldn't work on any ISO motion skills, but you work on his post shots and his jump shots. And so for each of these guys, you just go in, and so what I would do is kind of get a feel for what Joseph Young's ball handling ability is, and then work on his release. Now, as far as working on shots with each of the guys, I'm going to work on specific shots that I typically get in a game, and that would be from the baseline here. The standing shots. A lot of times those shots might come on the move like this. And so I'll work on both the standing shot and also driving to that spot and making that shot. So the spots I like to shoot from as far as shooters go with them are like the baseline. I like to shoot from the elbows. Primarily these 4 spots right here are ones you're going to focus on. So you'd want to focus on shooting with them from these spots, both from a set position and also driving to those spots and pulling up. And then around the perimeter for the 3-pointers, You know, these are the best 3-point shots in these positions here. You'll find guys, you'll play them, and they'll get into these specific spots, and that's where they're going to shoot their threes at. For some, they're kind of like hot spots for most players. Typically straight on the wings, and then on the baseline. It wasn't a three. You get the idea. Also, with each guy, in addition to his isomotion skills, you're going to want to work on layups. So driving to the basket, and those are all in the shooting controls section. Work on different kind of moves to the hoop. I see some guys come in and they'll do all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. So with your point guard and shooting guard, you're going to want to work on more on these isomotion skills and the shooting skills. With your forwards, typically, just mainly your shooting skills, maybe some post moves. It's going to depend on the forward skills. A guy like Miles Turner, I'm not going to work on his isomotion skills, but I will work on shots on the baseline here, where they'll end up being set a lot of times, maybe in the pick and fade, or just if they happen to get open in these spots. So I wouldn't work with Turner like on his 3-point shot. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but I would work on these little mid-range shots so that when he gets open. And then the other thing I would do with each of these bigs is work on their post moves. So you're going to want to get proficient in this area too with your bigs. That's an area I could use some work on. Probably could have worked on that a little bit more during the year, but I'm hoping next year that they do a little bit better with some of the post options that they have. So what I'll do, I'll work with each of these guys to kind of get a feel for what they're good at and what they're not. You can tell that by looking at their ratings. There are lots of ratings here. Layup, standing dunk. Turner's a pretty good standing dunker, so you want to get him in there and get him in a position where he can standing dunk. And the other thing you want to look at is badges. So here's I don't know if I can get to his player card or not, but I know Miles Turner has some badges. And just find out what they're strong at. So this is what I'll be working on between now that I've got the roster before I start scrimmaging with these guys. The next thing up, what I'm going to do is divide the team into 2 squads, into a blue squad and a white squad, and run some scrimmages with those guys and see how they perform both when I use them and when the CPU does. And then after that, we'll put together a starting lineup, and then we'll head over to Europe to start playing games. So appreciate you watching the vid. Let me know how I can help you out, and if you ever want to play, just give me a holler and I'll see you on the court.